morning. Our hand today is going to be pocket nines. In this hand, mid-position player open raises first in. We only have 19 hands on him. He's played 28-28. Looks like he's going to be a loose aggressive player. We look at his stats. Again, we don't have a huge number of stats on him. I'm going to say maybe 20%. Buttons played 2 out of 2. Cutoffs 1 out of 3, 1 out of 6 for mid position. So I think the mid position tells us a little bit more. Yes, he's at the mercy of the cards, but he's not raising 4 out of 6. I think that would mean it's just too unlikely that 4 out of 6 times he'd have like super good hands. It's possible, but I think it's not very likely. So I built this range something like this, 22%. Could be a little bit larger with 6-4 suited and 5-4 suited. I did give him some offsuit aces and didn't include like king 10, queen 10, jack 10. So we're going to go with that. He raises the 4, folds the small blind, who calls. I've got a lot more hands on him. He's looking to be a little bit more loose, slightly on the passive side, at least pre-flop. On the small blind, he's played 36% of hands. He's called 2 bets about 24% of the time. When we look at his notes, I could see, called 2 bets from blind range is that really long line. Has a lot of those different hands on there. I think a lot of those are from the big blind, just based on his the difference. So 47% called 2 bets from the big blind, but only 24 from the small blind. So I think he's going to have slightly tighter range. Post flop, he also looks to be a little bit more passive. His C bets under 60%. His turn is, if we balance these out, probably about 50% as well. So I think it's just a loose passive. This player, I put together about a 25% range. I think this is probably adequate. He's probably favoring more suited cards, 2 suited cards than offsuit cards, but I'm going to include the Broadway. So then it's on me. What do I do? Versus mid-position player, this is my 3-better call range here. So obviously we would have been really 3-betting jacks plus ace queen. Nines probably as well. We could go ahead and 3-bet just to try to avoid having to play out of position. There's already 9 big blinds there. If we 3-bet, we could go up to 16 big blinds and maybe even 20 big blinds. Risking 20 to win 9, not too bad. His fold to 3-bet stats 0 out of 1. We don't have a whole lot of hands, but this one's a little bit better, 2 out of 17. If he calls, that's fine. We'll be in position. Is it worth it? I don't know. We've got 2 big stacks, and we're all over 100 big blinds deep. So I almost think that maybe calling with pocket nines might be a little bit better. It might give us a little bit more playroom. We could always take stabs. It's definitely more on the passive side, but it helps keep the pot small, because what we don't want to do is raise to 16 and have both players call. We're in a big bloated pot with like a mid pair that it really is kind of difficult to play. So I called, and I think that's okay. Again, we could possibly raise. Flop comes down king 8. So at this point, I don't think that anyone really hit. I think my nines are in decent shape. I think we've dodged some cards. It's good that I think an ace would have been bad on this board. A lone king or a lone queen could have been bad on this board. But seeing 2 kings or 2 queens or even 2 jacks, I think are pretty good, because it just makes it less likely that the opponents will have the other of that card. So villain 10 checks. I think he's going to be checking 100% of the range. Actually, he donks flop 5%. This isn't. I don't think this is really a board where he's going to donk flop. If this was, let's say, king 8-2, then villain might donk with his top pair weaker kickers. So like a king 10, king 9, king 8 type hands. But on this board, this isn't really a good donk board at all. So he checks. I think we're checking too. We're going to check to the pre-flop raiser, and he bets 9, which is 3/4 pot. Now, what is he going to do that with? C-bet stat we look at. C-bets 2 out of 4 times. He's into 3 opponents. I think he's going to be probably C-betting possibly 100% of his range here. I think it kind of makes sense. It's hard. I mean, he could see the kings are out there, so if he's a thinking player, he realizes that it's just as difficult for him to have kings as it is for us to have kings. So I kind of like the play. I think he's gonna have cards that will have equity versus any caller. And I think he could definitely just fire out one bet, see what happens, and if he gets called, he can definitely slow down. So takes a stab at the pot. I'm going to say 100% of his range for this amount. I think if we were going to get rid of some hands, I'd get rid of some of the small hands like the 6-5, 6-4. We can do that and keep, maybe Queen Jack, Queen 10. Or just get rid of all of the no-mate hands and keep all of the ace-high hands. That could be like a C-bet range. Villain 10 folded, so it makes that easy on us. And then it looks to us, well, we're not going to fold whatsoever. But at the same time, I'm not sure if our hand is strong enough or even speculative enough for a check raise. So if we think about check raises, why would we check raise a full house? I mean, if we had 8s, we basically have all the cards. It doesn't make sense to check raise here because villain's just going to fold. I think our play is, if we're ahead, even with the king, if we're way ahead, I think we're going to stay ahead. Yeah, there's a possibility that we're going to let the diamond get there, but if we check raise, I think a diamond's still going to call. The diamond flush draw is still going to be calling us. We charge them, and I think we'll miss out some value, but I think we would be too predictable if we check raised, only with our kings, or only. I think if we check raise with our kings, well, I guess we could, kind of to add balance. So I would, let's color these up. I'm going to call with the full house. I think we're calling with the middle pair with these pocket pairs below the top card. We could raise 3 of a kind. And then, oops, it should be green. The nut flush draw could be a raise. And these are calls. Okay. Raise 13%. Yeah, that's probably okay. So raise if we have a king. So check raise if we have a king, or if we have the nut diamond draw. I think that could be balanced. May need a few more bluffs in there, and then we can call. So yeah, let's see if I did that. I just called, so we don't have 3 of a kind. Our flush draw, we don't have these. Are we gonna do 2-card backdoor flush draws? That's the thing. I think once villain checked, we could try a backdoor flush draw just to Just that we don't always have like one of these underpairs or full houses, so we have something there. What are we gonna do about the rest of these? A pocket pair less than the board. Yeah, I kind of think these 2-card backdoor flush draws. I think if we play maybe with the ace, but the villain could also have the ace. So if an ace comes, it's going to be hard for us to play. Maybe these, maybe those hands, because we don't block the ace. So villain could easily be doing with like an ace X hand. Unfortunately, those cards, if we catch them, we're going to have to be concerned about being dominated. But it gives us a way to kind of back in to, a straight. We've got some high cards, we've got some low cards. Okay, I'm going to add these two. I think all of those. The ace, I think we'd probably just dump those. All right, maybe not the best range. 5 of clubs. Now we're looking at with our hand. Probably checking, unless we want to be aggressive. And this could be a spot where we could lead here. Lead with our 9s, 10s, jacks. We lead. Diamond draw is going to call. King would probably raise. This is a good enough player who's going to be raising with the diamond draw. And if they are, then leading isn't a good thing. But I kind of think maybe this is what we should be doing. Again, we're just going to be check calling full house. We're going to slow play that. I mean, we've hit it. 8s and I would even add the 5s maybe. No, I think the 5s could be led too. If we had pocket 5s, I think we're going to lead those. I think we're going to lead 10s and 9s. Try to get some value for it. Middle pair. Maybe these pocket pairs. I think leading would be actually a pretty decent play here. And I checked. So at the time, I am 100% checking these pairs and probably the flush draw. And I think that's what's good. I think it seems strange to lead on a draw, but we have to think that villain, there's only 2 more kings left in the deck, so it's going to be hard for him to have kings. He's going to be concerned that I have a king. So if we lead with all of these weak hands along with, let's say, our diamond draw or even the straight draw, then it's going to put him in a tough spot. He's going to have to think, well, do I have a king? And he could give up like his ace queen, ace jack, which, yeah, he folds out. He folds out his equity when we have those weaker hands, but he also folds out his equity when we're still on a draw. I think leading then also is going to probably get called by the diamonds. So we get value from our pocket pair at the same time. So I think at the time I was just probably check calling because I didn't believe he had a king, which I don't really like that play. I think it's too passive. I think we should start leading here, being aggressive, and applying more pressure on villain 7. So the pot's 30. We should probably be leading about 20 or so, maybe 15, something like half pot, a little bit more. What does he do? Villains checks, and that's kind of, I think in my mind, I'm thinking, well, I'm gonna check. If he checks behind, then we know he doesn't have a king. Maybe he has an underpair, but definitely I don't think he has a king or Yeah, it definitely doesn't have a king. Could have eights. Could have like a 9-8 or 8-7 hand. But doesn't have kings, and that kind of opens him up to being bluffed on the river by like a bet of like a pot size bet. So I think once he checks, we're going. I think full house is still in his range, maybe. No, I think full house probably is just going to try to slow play, and I think he probably would have tried to slow play on the flop too. So let's get rid of the full houses. I don't think he has three of a kind. I think he would have continued betting, try to protect. I think these pairs are all going to be calling. He's going to be afraid of it. So you can see he does have kind of a generally weak range at this point, and I think that's why leading would have been really good instead of taking this passive line. We're basically giving him a chance to beat us. River's a queen, and that's why I didn't want to see a card over my nines, because he could have c-bet with queen jack or with queen 10, and that queen now just beats us. Whereas if we led on the turn, he's going to give up. He's going to fold out that equity so that we can get it. So now we lead. I think this is probably a weaker lead. I think here we're going to lead basically most, if not all, of our hands here. Queen didn't work out so well. So thinking here. So if we bet 100% of our range here, if we do it for a smaller size, it may encourage like ace jack to call or ace x to call, just to bluff catch, in which case I get value from like 2s, 3s, and 4s. He might just say, you know what, I'm going to fold, which gets me value for some of the busted diamond draws. I think betting larger could have the same effect. Yeah, I'm not sure if I like that 15 big blinds. I think it probably would have been better to go 30. However, that queen is actually scary. I think that queen's going to hit him quite a bit more. Let's change that. We're looking at any. Yeah, I guess so. It doesn't really change a whole lot for the middle pair. He's got so many other hands that are there. Okay, yeah, I think 15 is a little weak. I think we should have gone up to 30 big blinds. I think that would have really represented a wide range of hands that we could have, from value all the way down to just a busted draw, and applies more pressure than a half pot bet. So he does call, and we're thinking, what kind of hands does he call with? He doesn't call with a full house. He check raises. Overpair calls. The queens call. It's possible that the weak pair calls. And I mean, it's possible that ace high calls just a bluff catch, just because that 15 big blind bet. I think that's why 30 would be a whole lot harder to call. And he shows 2s. He shows that really weak pair. He didn't believe that I had it, and that's, man, at 15 it's easy for him to call. So I think with 15 big blinds, it encouraged calling with a lot more of these weaker pair hands. But at the same time, to me the 15 does kind of look weak. It's like, I know I should bet, but I'm afraid to bet. Whereas the 30 is like, okay, listen, I'm gonna bet this amount, and I either have it or I don't. So yeah, pocket 2s is in his range. We got this hand. Things I would do differently: lead the turn. I think that's number one. I think we could lead the turn and really apply pressure. We bet the turn. I don't know if pocket 2s can call. He's going to be worried about the king that's out there. He's going to be worried about the queen or the jacks, queens or jacks, because that's all hands. It's diamond board, diamond draw. I'm trying to protect my hand against that flush draw hitting. So yeah, lead the turn, and as played, when I didn't, I just checked the turn. I think our river bet should be larger. Our river bet should be pot sized or a little bit larger. All right, hopefully you enjoy this. If you do, look tomorrow for another hand.